COINTELPRO represents a dark period in the history of American democracy, demonstrating how government agencies can abuse their power to suppress legitimate social movements. The feminist movement, despite being targeted, did continue to grow and achieve many of its objectives, showing the resilience of collective action in the face of adversity. However, this came at the cost of the identity of the feminist movement and the abandonment of many critical core principles. The legacy of COINTELPRO serves as a cautionary tale about the importance of vigilance in protecting theory, practice, and ideological cohesion. The Counterintelligence Program, also known as COINTELPRO, initiated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the 1950s and officially active until 1971, has been a controversial chapter in American history, often criticized for its overreach into the lives of citizens and its effort to disrupt and discredit activist groups. While COINTELPRO is most famously known for targeting civil rights organizations and its leaders, its influence extended into various movements, including the feminist movement, which sought to challenge and change systemic inequalities faced by women in society. Today, we're going to examine the methods employed by this institution and the impact of those actions. The objective of COINTELPRO was to surveil, infiltrate, discredit, and disrupt domestic political organizations that the FBI deemed subversive. Under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI viewed any challenge to the status quo as a potential threat to national security, including the burgeoning feminist movement that gained momentum in the 60s and 70s. Feminists were advocating for radical changes in society, including equal pay, reproductive rights, an end to domestic violence, and more. The conservative elements of the government thought that these demands seemed to threaten the traditional American family structure and societal norms. The FBI utilized a wide range of tactics against feminist groups and leaders. These tactics include, but are not limited to, surveillance, both covert and overt, infiltration by agents and informants, the spread of disinformation, the creation of divisions within the feminist movement, and attempts to publicly discredit leaders. Such actions were part of a broader strategy to weaken the movement's influence and prevent it from achieving its goals. The spread of disinformation was and still is another key strategy. The FBI would plant false stories in the media, write anonymous letters to activists and organizations to breed suspicion, and even fabricate communication between groups to create the illusion of betrayal or misconduct. These actions were designed to undermine the trust within the movement and between public feminist activists, thereby diminishing their influence and effectiveness. Public discreditation efforts targeted at prominent feminist leaders attempted to undermine their credibility and moral authority. Some of these tactics included releasing fabricated personal information to scandalize and embarrass these figures, thus detracting from their activism and message. The goal was to isolate the leaders from their base and to weaken the overall movement. Despite these efforts, the feminist movement achieved significant legislative and societal changes, such as the passage of the Equal Pay Act in 1963 and the legalization of abortion with Roe v. Wade in 1973. However, the full extent of COINTELPRO's impact on the feminist movement is still significant in the present day. While it undoubtedly created obstacles, sowed discord, and even delayed certain achievements, the resilience of the movement and its ability to adapt and continue fighting for its goals is evident. Because of this, radical theory and practice have been largely stigmatized and replaced with more liberal, non-threatening idealism. Efforts like sex trade advocacy, fashion culture, the bimbo trend, and many others have slowly crept in to aid in the dismantling of female class consciousness, along with the disruption of feminist efforts. The trajectory of feminism within public and academic spheres have been marked in various waves, each with a distinct focus, methodology, and their own achievements. Liberal feminism, with its roots deeply embedded in the Enlightenment and principles of individualism and equality, have long advocated for women's integration into existing social structures, emphasizing legal reforms and equal opportunities within the framework of a capitalist society. However, in recent years, there have been a discernible shift as more women find promises of liberal feminism unfulfilling, leading to a resurgence of an interest in radical feminism. Liberal feminism has primarily focused on achieving formal equality through legislative changes, aiming to ensure that women have the same opportunities as men to participate in public and economic spheres. However, liberal feminism's focus on formal equality has failed to address the root causes of women's oppression, which are embedded in the social, economic, and political structures of society. This failure is particularly evident in the persistent sex-based marginalization that women face, regardless of formal legal protections that we may have been granted. Sex-based marginalization refers to discrimination and violence that individuals face based on their biological sex. This includes issues such as the wage gap, sexual harassment and assault, the disproportionate burden of unpaid domestic labor, etc. While liberal feminism has sought to address these issues through policies such as equal pay legislation and workplace harassment laws, these measures often fail to account for the deeply ingrained societal attitudes and practices that perpetuate women's oppression. For instance, the wage gap persists today despite equal pay laws, reflecting the undervaluation of women's work and the barriers that women face in accessing high-paying jobs and industries. The liberal feminist approach has been criticized for its emphasis on individualism, which overlooks the collective nature of women's oppression. By framing gender equality as a matter of individual rights and choices, liberal feminism often neglects the systemic and structural factors that limit women's freedom and agency. This individualistic focus has also led to the co-option of feminist rhetoric for the promotion of consumerist and neoliberal agendas, further entrenching the economic and social systems that underpin women's subordination. In response to these limitations, there's been a resurgence of interest in radical feminism, which offers a more comprehensive critique of the patriarchal structures that perpetuate sex-based marginalization. Radical feminism emphasizes the need to dismantle these structures rather than simply seeking to integrate women into them. It focuses on the ways in which patriarchy operates to oppress women as a sex class by highlighting issues such as male violence, reproductive rights, and the exploitation of women's labor. The return to radical feminism can also be seen as a reaction to the increasing visibility and normalization of sexual exploitation industries such as pornography and prostitution, which liberal feminism has often failed to adequately challenge. Radical feminists recognize that these industries are inherently exploitative and dehumanizing, reflecting and reinforcing the objectification and subordination of women. By contrast, liberal feminist approaches, with their emphasis on choice and consent, often overlook the coercive and unequal contexts in which such choices are made. The failure of liberal feminism to adequately address sex-based marginalization has led to a renewed interest in radical feminism, which offers a more cohesive systemic critique of women's oppression. This resurgence reflects a growing recognition of the limitations of pursuing equality within patriarchal structures and the need for more radical transformations of society. As more women recognize the interconnectedness of their oppression and the inadequacy of individualistic solutions, radical feminism provides a framework for understanding and combating the root causes of sex-based marginalization.